We do it again.
Starting in 5, 4,
Take two.
3, 2, 1.
All right, so if you've gotten my name in the last 5 seconds, it's William Fitzhugh. And my topic was also like Josh, working in retail for close to 3 years coming up in July. And I focus a lot on how the job can be very stressful and annoying, but also how the job can also be rewarding and fulfilling and make you feel like it's a great person.
Excuse me, Will.
Yes, Josh.
I'd like to ask, you've dealt with many customers in your time working in retail, and my question is, have you ever encountered a problem customer, and what was your response to that customer?
Oh yes, many, many times. Hobby Lobby especially, the way our pricing system works is we don't we have to type in sales and purchases. We don't just scan things on the scanner. So there'll be a lot of times where things are placed in a sale section, like if it's wall decor, a table decor item will be there, but it's not on sale. So I got to work because the customers will get upset and they'll try to fight with us, but I try to calm them down, explain the best that I can, explain that Hobby Lobby has a 40% off coupon. So if you can't get it on sale for 50, you can do the coupon for 40. You try to give them the best alternate option that will make them and us both happy in the end, I feel like. That's happened many, many times for me.
I see.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next for questions?
Me? Yep. So, with working at Hobby Lobby, I know there's kind of all sorts of work environments. Some are where the corporation supports the employees and it's more like a family, and others are where it's a little bit more kind of cold. How would you define the work environment of Hobby Lobby?
Follow-up question for you. Do you want the environment of stores versus corporate, or because I've had different experiences personally store to store?
Just like the overall store environment.
Well, I'm gonna say, speaking of the one that I've worked at down in here in Florida, it's basically become one giant family. These are people down here that when I go away, they're gonna miss me. When I come back, they are so excited to see me. They want to do nothing but talk with me all day, where we're opening boxes and stocking shelves, and it essentially feels like another family because there are people here that I know I can turn to that I couldn't turn to my normal friends for in person. We've become so close that they become almost like a person I can rely on no matter what. So it's essentially like an extended version of my family.
Yeah. King, you want to ask the next one?
Oh, okay. What has to be your worst experience working in retail?
I think the worst experience, maybe not with the customer, but in general right now, has to be with this whole COVID-19 experience. So let me tell you. Where to start? First off, we were one of the last stores to close in the state of Indiana. We were forced kind of to reopen because we were deemed an essential store simply because we sell fabric to make masks. They are, let's see what else, cutting hours like crazy instead of us letting people have their PTO and vacation pay, to help their workers out. They'd rather just cut hours and leave people to struggle right now. And they're effectively laying off all workers at some stores, basically saying it's in God's hands, you are on your own. So I think right now there's a lot of anger with the higher ups right now, especially because the reason our stores are still open is because the CEO's wife had a vision from God. Yeah.
Brandon.
Yes. Has working at Hobby Lobby specifically, has it aided in what you are choosing to do once you graduate from Bethel, once you get your degree?
I actually think in ways, yes, it has, because I've learned a lot of, if not actually being in management skills of assisting and helping others in leading, whether it's training or helping customers find things or calling other stores to figure out if we have an item for a customer. It's like I've been put in that leadership role, and like for me, I want to be in news production and I want to be a producer leading a news crew. So I've like had the chance essentially to be a leader already, and I see myself most likely being in a leadership role when I grow up and am in the career I want to be in.
All right. Well, when it comes to being effective in retail, do you think it is more important to know the products that you're selling or to know how to interact with customers? Or a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. I think the first thing that happens is the products, because I've been there almost 3 years now, that I know basically my whole store by heart. I can tell you where something is like back of my hand. But after that, like, you kind of learn the store. You essentially can grow in your experiences with the customers because you can provide better service. Like our main thing is goal, offer assistance, accompany, lasting impression. And you're able to do that so much more when you know the store, when you know the products. It makes it just so much more better of an experience for not only yourself, but the customers.
All right, your wrap up.
Like I said, like working in retail can be one of the hardest jobs. It could be one of the most stressful, annoying, awful jobs you can think of, but also it can teach you so many life lessons. It's something that everyone should be a part of for at least certain points in their life, just so they understand what people in the future, when you're checking out at a grocery store, what those people are going through, because you know you went through it at that same time. I think it's an essential thing that everyone should do.
All right, good stuff. All right, Brandon, you're up next.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
All right. So the speech I had given Wednesday was it was about a conflict between SIG and Glock, two firearms that are very well enjoyed, especially in the U.S., but the argument that people have whether one is better than the other.
All right, and we're going to go Will, Josh, Ray, Christian, and myself.
All right, so a good question to start off is, I guess, how necessarily I know there are a lot of people who see guns as a negative in the world. Like, how did your relationship with guns grow in this very positive way of like learning how to use them the right way and shooting them the right way and all whatnot? Like, how did that start for you?
It initiated with knowing that my father had handguns, he has firearms, and he wanted to make sure that I was equipped to use it properly. So I've gone through training courses that are in relation to how to properly maintain and use a firearm, target practice with it, and continuing to just better understand the purpose of the firearm, that it is for protection. It is not just a toy you play with, something like that. And continuing to search more for answers that I may not know. That way I properly understand this piece of equipment and can maintain it. That way I don't put other people's lives in jeopardy with it as well.
Thank you.
All right. Brandon, you said earlier in your speech that this is kind of a two-part question. In your speech, that police tend to prefer, I believe, was it the Glock to the SIG, right? But you said in St. Joseph County, the police used the SIG and then swapped to the Smith & Wesson. So my question is, why did the police in St. Joseph County use the SIG, and why did they swap to the Smith & Wesson?
That is a very excellent question. Well, it wasn't just St. Joseph County that used the SIG. Goshen also is equipped to use the SIG. They have not switched to the Smith & Wesson as far as I know. St. Joseph County, they are run differently. So different districts of officers are equipped with different firearms. And I believe they may have utilized the SIG initially because it's what is used in our military also. So they're seeing that the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, they are using this firearm to protect their land why do we not use this to protect our people as well? However, the reason they had switched to the Smith & Wesson was not based on reliability. The SIG was a very excellent firearm that they were using. It was the practicality of it. So the Smith & Wesson they use now, it is more compact for the officer to use, but it's more practical to grab when they need it. And the research I did on the firearm that they're using, because I did discuss this with a sheriff in St. Joseph County recently, was that it does contain a few rounds less than the SIG does, but it's easier to access than the SIG was on the from where it is positioned on the officer.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So with both of those guns, I know you have to have maintenance for them. Which one would you consider it has the simplest maintenance, and which one takes the least amount of maintenance?
Well, in reality, they both should take the same amount of maintenance. You want to make sure your firearm is clean, your firearm is equipped, that it is loading the round into the firing chamber properly, smoothly. However, if we're being realistic, Glock has been known to be the easiest to clean, to maintain, to keep running, because they have shown that a Glock thrown in a pond, thrown in the ocean, left in the water, left in mud, it is, in a sense, similar to the AK-47. That thing will keep loading the round. It'll keep firing, and it will do its job through the damage it's given because of the way it's constructed. The materials in it that keep it flowing properly. So the Glock will be easier to clean and maintain, but in reality, you should be treating them both as equals. Make sure they are properly cleaned, maintained. That way you don't have any issues in the future. Possible rust buildup or just mechanisms going out.
I have a question. You mentioned earlier that that you have firearms because for safety purposes and they're not your plaything. How would you go about preventing someone? How would you go about preventing your guns from being in hands? Like say your son was irrational or something. He wants to go shoot up. What would you do to avoid that certain kind of situation?
Excellent question. It's proper placement of the firearms in the home in that situation. So walking out, like going to the store or whatever, a child should know that they are not to touch the firearm there. At home, it should be properly placed, either if you're keeping it on your person, making sure that it is not accessible to an infant or child, as well as when you're going to bed, that it is out of location for the child to be able to reach to get to it. For an example, my father, he keeps his firearm in the top drawer of his dresser. When I was younger, I wasn't able to get up there to get to it if I wanted to. Personally, I have 2 different lock boxes that I keep in my room to properly seal off my firearms. That way no one else can get to them, even if I am not able to get to them either. The keys to those lock boxes are placed in a different location, which is difficult if someone were to break into the home for me to access them, but not impossible. And the keys to get into them are similar looking as for another lockbox of mine. So if someone else were to try and get into them, it would be a struggle for them. That way, my nieces and nephews, when they come over, they can't get to my firearms either. It's simply keeping them out of sight, out of mind. That way, no one can access them to cause more harm.
Thank
All
you.
right. So I know growing up, and even now, maybe in like hip hop and movie culture, it seems like the Glock has had a different level of popularity you know, whenever someone would talk about I got my 9, they were normally talking about a Glock. So how do you think that the Glock was able to integrate into like hip hop and just predominant urban culture and just culture in general? How do you think that rose to the top in popularity?
That's a very interesting question. When you think about pop music, unless you're thinking about like the song Murder on My Mind, where he's talking about AK-47s and other firearms, the Glock is still incorporated in that song as well. But the Glock is an easier firearm to use, and it holds many rounds. The Glock 19 Gen 5, I believe that one holds 18 rounds, 19 chambered. And there is not a safety on that one. It's a safety in the trigger. So there's 2 triggers. One is a soft one, and then it goes to the harder pull. So for those hip hop songs, rap songs, it is more of it's the easier access gun that they use for those videos, because they don't have to pull it out of their pants and take off the safety. They pull it out and they're ready to go. And in most hip hop songs, that's what it's showing. It's showing more of a thug life, where you are using this, you are here to pop caps, you're here to get stuff done. So the time it takes to take off the safety and do that part of their job it's a hassle. It's wasting time. The Glock is very proper for those situations because there is no safety you have to flip off. It's simply pulling the trigger properly.
Interesting. Closing remarks.
I am very happy to have spoken with you about Glocks and SIGs today, as well as the Smith & Wesson. I just want to remind you that these are not toys. You need to properly maintain them and be experienced in what you are doing. Don't put others' lives in danger because you are choosing to buy a product that you may not be properly equipped to handle. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
All right. And last but not least, Christian, you're up next.
Okay.
Just
Oh,
give us a quick recap for technical purposes or for formality.
okay. My name is Christian King, and my speech literally a couple minutes ago was on orcas and or killer whales, and it was basically informative about where they are and what they are, where they're from, and what they eat, etc., etc. And I am capable of taking questions.
And we're gonna go, let's go Will, Josh, Ray, Brandon, and then I'll conclude.
Right. So an interesting one I wonder about. You said that the orcas were the apex predator, the number one on the food chain, essentially, right? That's the question I have for a second question.
Mm-hmm.
How does a orca go about killing, like you said, great white? Because I picture these great whites as faster, quicker, more deadly than orcas. Does an orca kill a great white, and how does that happen?
It's a very interesting question. So, in a specific area that's called Seal Island, and off the coast of South Africa, since there are seals there, they also not only do great white sharks go over there to eat seals, but orcas are there as well. And usually they clash when there's a seal, there's blood in the water, and both animals are going towards the water. And what an orca will do to go after a shark is that they'll swim towards it at a very high speed and bump it. In fact, their skulls are really designed to be able to ram their prey and with very little body damage to themselves and do internal impact on their target. They'll hit the shark. The shark will go up. The shark will flip upside down, and then they'll open their jaws and hold the shark in that upside down motion to put the shark in tonic immobility, which means that it can't move, and then they'll hold that shark down in that position until it suffocates, and then they mainly eat the liver. So
Wow.
that's a very good question.
That's great.
Earlier, you said that orcas have regional dialects based on where they are in the world, kind of like a language. Could you elaborate on that point a little bit?
Yes. Um, because like with resident orca, transient orcas, they've been known to be less complex and less talky. And if you look at orcas based upon where they live, you notice that that the vocalizations that they use are different. For example, um, orcas around New Zealand will kind of use long, slow calls, whereas versus orcas in near Antarctica will use like high pitch, squeakier calls. And even though to some of us it's just squeaking and whistles and calls and all those kind of calls, it actually means it's a different language. It means something else. And it may be like, oh, that's just the sounds that they make, but we don't know what they're saying. So like, and because it's different environments for every single orca, they're probably like all talking about like where we're gonna eat, where are we going, what are we doing, but it just sounds different. It sounds different. Each orca does not sound the same. So
Thank you.
Brother Ray.
So you said that orcas are apex predators, right? So with that, what's the largest prey they have? I know you have, whale sharks and things of that sort. Do they prey on anything about that size?
they do. And their nickname is that they are the wolves of the sea, since they hunt in packs. Because they hunt in packs, they can pretty much go after prey of almost any size. And if I am not mistaken, the largest prey that scientists have recorded them going after has to be whales. It has to be whales. And it all and like I said before, it all depends on they'll eat a certain type of whale. Depends on where they are. In the Arctic, they'll hunt minke whales. In the Antarctic, they've been known to hunt blue whale calves. And near Baja California, near Mexico, they hunt gray whales and even go to their migratorial routes to hunt gray whale calves. So I would say whales, like minke whales, blue whale calves, gray whales. I'd say those, and even sperm whales. I say whales in general would be their largest prey.
Brandon.
Now, you had mentioned that at least specifically two of these types, I can't recall which one they were, but they do not communicate with each other, the different types. Would you say that is simply because they don't speak the same way as the other orca? Or would you possibly state that that is some sort of racial bias against the other breed?
It might be, and honestly might be some kind of, it might be a race it might be a race thing, as crazy as that sounds, because as mentioned before, both they live in they live in they have to live in the same areas, because um because even though transient orcas can live where a resident orca would live, and the transient orcas wouldn't go after fish. But they do know that with that fish, if there's fish here, then somewhere close there's going to be seals. So that's why would they be in the air? So they would just be there, but I feel they wouldn't talk to each other because they're different. They're different families, different dialects, and they all do different things.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
I had a great question, but I've been so fascinated by listening to all this. I'm trying to remember what my question was because I didn't write it down. What would you say is the biggest misconception about orca whales?
That's actually a really good question, because with their name, killer whales, because in the early 70s and 80s, when we were just seeing these, when we were like studying these animals for the first time, because of like a certain in 1975, a movie called Orca the Killer Whale, which is pretty much like Jaws, but instead of a great white shark, it was orcas, and everyone just think, oh, this is the orca, as huge cone-shaped sharp teeth that'll bite on you and kill you when it gets the chance. But after doing actual research and actually being around them in the wild, they've come to realize that they are incredibly friendly and won't do anything to harm you. So they are very like we as like, even though like where they're like they're designed to hunt mammals like that can go from land to water, like sea lions. Hunting human beings just doesn't make sense to them. So it doesn't make and so they wouldn't really do. That's not something they really would do. In certain situations, the only instance where an orca has harmed a human being is in captivity, and that's not even an orca's fault. So,
All right, closing
good
statement.
question. So I'm really glad to talk to you guys about orcas. As you can tell, they're kind of my favorite animal, and I kind of wanted to inform you guys about them because, like in captivity, you go to SeaWorld or any marine park that has orcas, and they'll tell you all these things about them, and they're not true. So I kind of want, because I've never, like, I've only, the only time I remember going to see an orca at SeaWorld or something, I was too to even remember how it went down. But I learned more about orcas from reading books, watching videos, looking online, than just going to any of these parks. I know all this knowledge about them, and I had not gone to SeaWorld since I was a kid. So thank you all for your time.